Good morning, Coach. I am pumped up. You had a big swim camp this weekend, and snowing here. Perfect time to talk about swimming.
Yeah, and I mean, it's my favorite day of the year. It's Halloween, folks.
Oh,
Get
that's
out your
right.
candy. Yeah, make it rain on your front porch. Dish out those Milk Duds and Sour Patch Kids and Rolos, Junior Mints for everybody. It's going to be a good day.
Yeah,
It's gonna be a great day. The day, October 31st, the year 2023. Welcome aboard, everybody. You listen to the Crushing Iron podcast, and this is episode 727.
It sure is, and since I don't plan on having any trick-or-treaters out here, because like I said earlier, we have no street lights whatsoever. It's very dark out here. I have 2 apple cider donuts in case somebody shows up.
Well, I got a question to ask, and I'm not sure how this works in, the lake type communities. Could you get some people at the back door via kayak?
Oh, that would be outstanding. Or some of those trolling motor pontoon type things.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's. I mean, obviously, with the picture you sent me, it doesn't look
There's
very
snow
pretty.
on the
Yeah,
beach. I would love it if somebody showed up in a kayak. I would give them. I might give them some shredded beef and a sandwich.
Ooh, couple bags of ramen noodles.
A little hot tea for the road.
Hot tea, what every grandmother loves and yearns for. Hot tea.
Let's mix
But yes,
Halloween
it's
up.
that's right. It's Halloween. Parents, good luck to you. At least your kids are probably going to school tomorrow. Ours is not. But yeah, it was I think a rather slow racing weekend. You got Ironman Florida this weekend. You got I think the New York City Marathon this weekend as well. So pretty low key racing weekend. We're entering the off season for a lot of people. But yeah, we did a swim camp this week, and as I promised last week, it's not easy, or excuse me, it's not hard to get me riled up about swimming, but especially coming off a swim intensive camp. We had an awesome group and had an awesome weekend. We'll talk about that today, and a little bit two-parter for today's cast, and then again on Thursday. But if it's your first time tuning in today, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in Triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general terms of your Bibles. We appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. For the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. Mike and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level triathletes, looking at the very first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to world championships, and everyone in between from all over the globe. And we use the feedback loop we have with them and training peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion of the day. We also like to utilize our Facebook group. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question. We'll let you right in. Awesome community, fantastic resource, solid individuals. So if you have questions, drop them in, because there's a lot of very experienced triathletes in there willing to live a helping hand. So don't be a lurker, be a participant. And we'll go in there about once a month, do a bit of a Q&A, take the pulse of the community, and then answer as many questions as we can live on the podcast. And that is it. We have no sponsors. We have no ads, but we do have an agenda, and that's to do our best to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yeah, and hopefully we're doing that, helping out a little bit. One of my favorite things when the first snow comes of the year is when I let my Maddie out, the dog, and she walks out on the front porch and looks back at me like, "Are you serious, dude?"
She's like
what? I'm like,
she's like, "You put us here? This is your idea of living the dream," is what she's thinking. She turns back around at you. Yep. I see that. Did she get even a little bit excited? Because I know when last year we let Waffles out, was also his first time to ever see snow, so a little bit different. Maddie's been around the block; she's seen it plenty of times, but no excitement at all. Just like straight disdain for what Dad did to you.
I think she's got a little bit still. I mean, she's getting old, so she's a little, slow in her step, but she kind of gets a little hop going out there a little bit. Yeah. I mean, I remember back in the day, back at Shelby Park, you used to walk in those parks, and it would kind of like flood, in the woods kind of thing, where there's a little bit of water and then ice in the winter one time. And the poor girl, she was walking through there and fell into the ice. I mean, it was only like 6 inches deep, but I think she's got a little trauma about the snowfall.
Don't we all?
Had to wrap her up and carry her home.
Oh man, such a good dad dog.
I know.
Yeah. Quickly, since we have a little bit Halloween theme before we get rolling on swimming. A much more important topic. Least favorite candy of all time.
Mine?
Yeah.
You
can't say onions.
Onions. I'm starting to like onions, actually.
What?
I know. I'm coming around. I've always liked them. I just don't like their texture, but I'm getting past it. Least favorite candy. Those tart. What are those things?
Sweet tarts.
Smarties. Yeah. I mean, I used to eat them, but I never really liked them. I don't think.
Yeah, they're worthless. They're definitely one of my least favorite, without question.
I know you got one specific that's gonna steam some people. Twizzlers.
They're worthless.
Come on, man.
I mean, they really are. Like, I mean, they have no candy has real solid nutritious value. No people with dark chocolate might argue with that, but they don't even have a taste. It's like chewing on a long red wound piece of rubber.
Yeah, sometimes they just.
I mean, nothing. It's got nothing, and especially in like the Halloween candy size. It's not even big enough.
Yeah, they don't make them the same, I don't think.
No, they don't even come from the same factory.
No,
they can't.
No chance. I don't know. I think for me, Twizzlers are like the cream soda. Maybe once a year they hit the spot.
So, you brought up I mean, I think what they do is the Twizzlers that they package for Halloween are like the split ends from the regular Twizzlers.
Oh yeah, that leftovers.
Yeah, like the leftover snip. Like they're packaging up the regular package, and they're like
terrible.
That in, they're like either throw it away or hear me out, mini package, sell them for Halloween. And the guy's like, I'm giving you a promotion. I'm giving you a raise.
Take the rock hard.
Twizzlers.
It's
exactly
just brutal.
Out. And last quick tip for Halloween that I actually heard from one of your athletes this weekend, Allison Alexander. And I have spread the word feverishly around Overland Park. Sitting at the house, we ordered barbecue in on Saturday night, and she said, "Yeah, you got to do the candy. I think she called it the candy fairy." And I was like, "What do you mean candy fairy?" She said, "Yeah, I tell my kids that you pick 15 pieces of candy that you're going to keep, and that's it. And the rest of the candy gets picked up by the candy fairy and taken to people who don't get candy."
Oh, that's beautiful.
I said, "That's absolutely brilliant." So I'm doing that for sure. But then I also said, well, what if other parents, get a hold of this and they're like, "What do you mean you don't give them to people?" And they might look down on you for that. But listen, I think every parent's going to put that in their pocket and use it because I'm using that for sure. I think you gift something in return. I don't know. So first you're doing it, but Allison Alexander, thank you. I'm doing it, doing the 15 pieces of candy and then giving the rest to people that don't have any, unless it's Reese's, and I'm probably going to keep those.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
20,
I'm just glad I don't have candy around because I don't want to eat it.
Yeah, that's the part it's happening. And so swim camp this weekend, we had 20 athletes come in from all over. Obviously, all we did was swim. And listen, I know we've done probably 10 How to Not Suck at Swimming podcast episodes.
It's funny. I titled this out of the blue 11. So.
Oh, did you? All right. So I think we're probably right on track. And listen, I was telling somebody yesterday, and you're the same as a coach, like when you work with a wide range of athletes, like you always, you obviously you want them to learn a lot from you, but you always learn a lot from them. And swimming is one of those, as you all know, like in my opinion, it is without question the hardest of the three, right? To pick up technique, to pick up how to do it right. And then the most problematic piece of it is you can't see yourself, right? You can watch as many YouTube videos as you want. You can, read articles, you can listen to podcasts like this one, but seeing yourself is really, really hard because you might think you're doing one thing, but in reality, you're probably doing another. And so Okay, I'm just going to kind of go over today and then later this week some of the big like high level things we worked on, and then I really kind of noticed, because there were a lot of aha moments for me as a coach, because you try to explain things, especially swimming, because it is one of those kind of aha sports. Like something has to be said in a certain way for it to click, and that's when you start to like really make progress. You have to either feel it or it has to be said in a correct way. And the more you say things over and over and over again, then there's some times where I think it was like Friday night, I was explaining a drill for athletes to do that we're having. So I split people up in lanes based on what I saw was one of the kind of their one main flaw. And I gave this one group a specific drill to do on, and it didn't click for almost any of them. And then I gave them the winning piece of, not the winning piece, that was probably the tempo trainer, the winning piece of pool toy equipment was actually one of those colorful ball pit balls that you kind of see in like the ball pits you jump in at, the state fair or at like Chuck E. Cheese or Mr. Gadd or somewhere. Mm-hmm. I use those to use instead of a fist drill. So you kind of grab on the plastic ball. But the drill I gave them the first time, they didn't feel it, didn't click. That one obviously did. But there was a piece of paper on the wall. We swam at a local high school, a very, very nice pool. And there's a sheet of paper on the wall. They kind of had to look for it. You wouldn't just notice it without like really paying attention and scouring like where it was. It's underneath the pace clock, and it said, do you want to get better at swimming? ? And then below it said, actions speak louder than words. And that piece, a couple people read it, and in terms of, obviously, everyone who came this weekend wanted to be a better swimmer. They came for the specific reason to either unlock some of their potential, to figure out what they're doing wrong, to have someone look at them, to do it right, to be pushed by other people. But that piece of advice, or really just accountability, I think is huge, because I know you hear the same thing that I hear a lot, and we hear it in our Facebook group. You can read it. A lot of people say, I really just want to get better at swimming. But that actions speak so much louder than words. And what that means is putting the work in. And swimming is the one, again, especially for most people who come from who get into the sport, either come from no background in any of the three, or come from at least a generic, I've biked before and I've ran before background. Most people don't come from the swim. So they get very, very, very discouraged. They get very, very disappointed. They get very frustrated. They don't know what they're doing wrong. So they quit and they give up, or they don't spend any time at all pursuing getting better. And so everybody wants to get better. And you can say that about all three of the sports. I want to get better at running. I just won't run enough. I want to get better at biking, but I don't like to bike. I want to get better at swimming, but I hate to go to the pool. Well, then you don't want to get better. You like the idea of getting better. You like the way that who doesn't I like the way it sounds to get better. It's like, people, I really like to lose, a few pounds, as they hold like, a double cheeseburger in one hand and a, supersized, Coke and Twink in the right. Like, no, you don't. You don't want to. You like the idea of it. And I think, especially with swimming, because it is so hard, and the availability for most athletes is so difficult when you talk about time and return on investment and going to the pool. Like you just talked about before the podcast, right? Your closest pool right now to where you live is 10 miles. And everywhere you've lived before, obviously it's been a lot closer. But for a lot of people, that's a reality. It's 10 miles away. It's 15 miles away. Some people, it's a 30-minute one-way trip. So you got 30-minute one-way, 30-minute, there's an hour. Let's say you've been swimming for an hour. You equate, you add in time to, change and go to the locker room and then meander the pool deck for a little bit and decide what lane you want or wait for a lane. And it's about 2.5 hours. And you're like, man, then you're talking about you're in the pool for an hour. The chances are you're probably only working for 35 minutes of it. So you're looking at like a 4-minute, a 4-to-1 ratio of 4 not working minutes to 1 working minute. That's not a great return on investment, right? When you can talk about running, you can walk out the front door from your first step of your driveway, and you want to run 60 minutes. You're probably going to be active 60 minutes. So it does have, and I recognize that, and I think you do too, that it's got its obstacles, right? Because it's so technique driven. It's kind of so hard to wrap your brain around in terms of what I'm doing wrong. And I haven't really thought about this, because I know a lot of people swim in masters groups or groups, but most people, and I think most triathletes swim alone. And that alone makes it hard to stay motivated. That alone makes it hard to push yourself. You don't really, you struggle with pacing. But that was like the one thing, one of the first takeaways I had was reading that, and then obviously looking around, seeing everybody's there. But that came to get better at swimming was cold, the temperature dropped, we're walking the pool at 7 a.m. If you really want to get better, you have to invest in the time. I'm not talking about investing in money, right, to go to a camp or a wetsuit or whatever, which is the thing most people will do is I'll just buy a wetsuit or I can buy this. You have to invest in the time, and you have to really and I can't say this enough, intensely pay attention to what you're doing and how you're doing it. So if you're out there and you feel like you are stuck, right, in cement when it comes to swimming, you can't get any better. You've hit a plateau. You don't know what to do, or you want to get better, and you look back at your last year and all you've done is swim on average twice a week. You're not going to get any better. That's just a fact. So if you really want to get better at swimming, you need to commit to doing the work that's required to get better at swimming.
I can speak as a adult onset swimmer, and we all want to get better. And I think it was the last podcast or one of them, you're talking about Lucy Charles and how did she swim 50,000 a week or something like that? 50,000. This is the best swimmer in the world, triathlete. And for a minute or a minute and a half lead out of the water. I mean, we're talking about, what you guys probably swam 10,000 plus over 3 days or something. I'm guessing more than that, maybe. This weekend.
4 swims. It was over 10K. It was close to 12.
Yeah. So right there, I'm sure that most people was like, man, that's a lot of swimming. It's like, it really isn't. I mean, as I started late in my life, sometimes I can, because I feel like I have at least a good enough interpretation of form to be okay. And if I haven't swam in a while, sometimes my fastest laps are the early ones. And you just, you can never underestimate. I mean, the fitness side of things. Yeah. It's like, I think if some people have a fast 100 here and there, they know how to do it. They just haven't maybe located exactly what it is they're doing. So you're talking about swimming a lot for a little bit of, because how easy is it if you're a 2-minute 100 swimmer and you want to swim 1:30 and it's like you want that overnight, but how long that takes is incredible, and a lot of hours in the pool. And I was talking to Emily about swimming this weekend. We were talking about how we were talking about Lucy's turnover and how fast it was, and how everybody wants that kind of turnover, but if you're not strong enough, you end up starting to shorten your stroke naturally, because if you're trying to get a faster turnover, you don't have the strength to get through it. And so, all those things kind of play in. But for me, whenever I'm swimming my best is when I'm swimming a crap ton of time, and I think it's so hard to know exactly what you're doing. And a lot of people will continue swimming and not see any improvement. Obviously that is a situation where there's either something mental going on, or they just don't have a technique it's going to let them get faster. But from my, I don't know, from my perspective, it's like the amount of time you have to put in to become a better swimmer. If you haven't, especially if you didn't swim when you were younger, well, I don't know if that's true necessarily, but I'm just saying, there's a lot of hours that need to be put in still for most people. And, I got a guy, he's really fast, and he did really well at Wisconsin 70.3. And we talked about this. He wants to get better at swimming. And I said, dude, you got to swim at least 4 times a week if you really want to make a dent, because he's a decent swimmer, but he needs a lot more. And who's going to, the commitment alone for that is tricky, because, you can start now, and do you have what it takes to continue swimming a lot throughout when everything else starts ramping up too, right? I feel like sometimes swimming is the hardest one for people to stay at a high volume with.
Yeah, I mean, you 2 things. One, it kind of moves into my second point, but I wanted to touch on what you said about, Lucy Charles Barkley, because that's been I've seen so many YouTube videos, looking at her stroke, and that's the perfect stroke, and there's this. I talked about that in our classroom presentation. I said, well, the truth is that's the perfect stroke for her. And we don't know, one, obviously she was fast. We don't know, but even though she said in her post-race interview that she thought she found like a current where she was in the water. We talked about that in our race recaps. You don't know what effect that had on her time. But one of the things that we all need to know as age group athletes, right, whether you're front, middle, or back of the pack, is that when you look at these athletes, their running economy, their running cadence, their bike cadence, their swim cadence, they are not racing Ironman at zone 2. Easy, like you are. They're doing it like on a rivet the entire time. They're done in 7.5 hours. You're probably going to take, on average, 12 to 16 hours. So some of you, twice as long as they are. And so you see these higher turnover rates, especially in swimming and especially in cycling, and you might want to mirror that. But the fact is that they're going at a higher intensity for a shorter period of time. So that's not the same for age group. That's why you see so many people making these mistakes by trying to mirror and do exactly what pros do. And you're just not, like you talked about before, that you don't do 50K a week. You don't have the fitness to have that high of a turnover out of the gate. You want to work to that point, right? If it makes sense. But in the same time, I think we talked about this on maybe even the very first How to Not Suck at Swimming was you also got to know your body type. Right? Are you long and lean like Lucy Charles Barkley with real long arms? Strong strokes, long strokes are great. Michael Phelps has these orangutan arms, his fingertips like down to his knees. Of course he can take long strokes. If you got baby T-Rex arms, you better not be gliding. You're not going anywhere. You're going to have a higher turnover. So you got to know that. And that kind of goes on my second one is know your flaws. Everyone uses their flaw as I'm just not strong enough, or I'm just too slow. That's not your flaw. That is what equals your slowness, right? I cross over. I don't finish. I don't have any feel for the water. I've got terrible body positioning. I don't breathe correctly. And I'm talking about breathing like from a head position standpoint. My head is too low. I wiggle too much. I over rotate. All those things are flaws that add up to equal how much slower you are. So stop saying, I just can't get fast. I'm just so slow. If you don't know how to get better and what your flaw is, you can't not be slow. You can't get faster. So fine. And that's the rub, right? With swimming is that while it's so technique driven, if I walked up to you and I said, all right, Mike, I guess the best analogy I could give would be with cycling, right? Because cycling is really no form at all. You just pedal in a circle on a fixed plate. And running, obviously, you have to have good running economy. That's the closest to swimming in terms of 3. But in running, right? If I said, all right, Mike, you just needed to change these 2 small things, right? You're crossing over in front of your body with your arm carriage, and your stride is a little bit too short, you lengthen up. And if you do those things, you're going to take 20 seconds off a mile. Just those small things. You don't need to run more. Run harder. You don't need to run hills. You don't need to buy new carbon-plated shoes. But you're going to go from 830s to 810s. You'd be like, sign me the fuck up. I'm in. Cycling. Hey, man, if you really want to reduce your CDA, you really want to reduce your drag, you really want to get aero and drop, 5, 6 minutes off your Ironman time. And you can do these things. You can drop $1,500 on the newest, greatest, front end from, whatever brand. I can get some super, they call those super, aero cockpits now. And people are willing to drop $2,000 like it's nothing. Calf sleeves, buying them. Disc wheel, buying it. I'm just buying it. And I'm going to save, according to their white paper, I'm going to save 7 minutes in the course of an Ironman. And I'm going to drop 3-4K, right? And that's the same thing. But if I told you, right, and you tell most athletes, hey, listen, if you can stop crossing over and having to unwork your work in the wrong direction, and you can finish further back, or you fix your head position, you fix your body position. I'm not even asking you to do 500 more K a week. I'm just asking you to fix these things and take a little bit of time to address your flaws. They're going to drop 10 seconds off your 100, maybe 20 seconds, 25 seconds off your 500. They're going to save 3 to 4 minutes after 70.3 time. Yeah, but I mean, that's just, the swimming isn't, it's not that important. It's just, it's but the time I got to put the work in that, and then you have the same conversation the next day and you're like, hey, listen, I got this disc wheel and I got an aero helmet, save you 6 minutes on an Ironman. Like, where do I sign?
Yeah.
I got 4K laying around, done. It's not that they ever buy it or work it, but swimming that's what's so great about it, is you fix just a few. We had one of the athletes came in. We did some timing and to establish paces and zones for the weekend to make sure body's intensity was the exact same. It was just really, really good to control people. I'll talk about that either later in this one or the next week's podcast. But we had some person who took 20 seconds off her 200 time trial with less effort just by changing two things. So every 300, every 600, she's saving a minute. That's about 7 to 9 minutes over the course of an Ironman. Mm. You can't buy that, right? And we didn't ask them to work harder. We just asked them to work smarter. So know what it is that you're doing incorrectly. Because one of the things I talked about in the classroom presentation before we even got in the water was, in sports, right? It's especially with cycling and running, a lot of people think about addition. What can I add? What can I do more of, right? From a technique standpoint, I need to change from a 4-foot striker to the heel or a midfoot, or I need to change my cadence up. Or I need to have, go up in the Superman praying mantis style on the aero bars, or I need to do more of this. Swimming for a lot of people is about removing. I'm just asking you to take away, right? Because we talked a lot this weekend about habits, right? And trying to think with athletes, like when we're doing some repeats, I would say, listen, I want you to keep this pace and hold it. And if you fall behind, right, you don't find yourself holding on to the pace, instead of trying to swim faster, right? Because swimming is one of those sports where the harder you try, the slower you go. And I just said, either think about one, removing a habit. So removing your bad habit of bad head position, or adding a habit that's positive. It doesn't take more fitness, right? It just takes a stroke adjustment, a technique adjustment. And you're not only going to get free speed, but you're going to come out of the water fresher because you're going to be more efficient. And that is just, I can't tell you how important it is to not guess at what your flaw is. And don't say that I'm slow or I just can't swim. Know what your flaw is and spend time addressing it, right? And addressing it doesn't mean doing it for, a 100 before your main set. Because, if you talk to most athletes, rushing through their swim is most people's problem. And I've got athletes, and you got athletes too, that'll just be honest with you. I just wanted to be done today. So, you give them a broken down, you got your warm up, you got your preset, which is usually filled with, opening up the body, getting warm. You got them doing, like a specific drill, which means just focusing on a specific aspect of, body awareness for their stroke to get them ready for the main set. And it might be, that might be 1,200. The main set might be, 1,200, whatever. And the whole thing might equal up to, 2,900, 3,000 yards. And what they'll say is, I just wanted to be, done today. So I just swam 3,000 straight. Stop doing that. Break it down, get better. Cause yes, you got out of the pool. Again, I think we did the math in this a few weeks ago, right? Like swimming straight through the main set versus doing it might save you like 2 to 3 minutes. Depending on where you live, that's like the, hitting one red light instead of hitting a green light. And you're right back to where you started.
Yep.
Take the time to do it right. So again, number 2, what are your flaws? And then what are you doing to try and fix them?
Yeah. Because you think about it, swimming in a pool and then you get into the race and it's open water and you're going for a hell of a long time. If you can fix that one flaw and make it easier, that won't feel as hard. It's just like I think about stuff like that all the time. It's different, When I trained in a pool 2 years ago, I swam a crap ton and I did a lot of volume. And out here in the water, I was just trying to get in the lake. I was doing a lot of open water, so it was really more about finding the ability to kind of keep going. And I said the ability, but just I always say it's like this sport to me is always about making things easier, not harder. And I think that a lot of times we do that. And like you said, when people just kind of get in there and just start rushing the whole thing, it's not I mean, I think warm up is important for every one of these sports, and I think we do better at building our abilities when we have a nice warm up, and then we can actually go after, riding or running or swimming harder at certain times too. You compared swimming to cycling, or made the analogy with running and cycling, and I've been thinking about swimming almost as in walking, because it's like if you're trying to walk faster, you just have to have really good technique, I think, and you have to build the ability to hold it for a long time. I mean, swimming is kind of a slower, it's not impact, and it just seems like it would take a little longer to sort of build those muscles, because you're running your arms through water and stuff, and without real strong resistance a lot of times. So to me, it's I just think it's kind of a long game kind of operation, and I don't think it comes naturally to a lot of people, and a lot of people don't have patience for that long game.
Thank you for segueing right into my number 3.
You're welcome.
You
Without even knowing, by the way.
I know, because we canceled our usual hour and a half pre-show meeting. You say knifing through the water or cutting through the water?
Well, it's a great point.
It's one of those two. It was, you say, how you a lot of athletes, and that's my number 3, is a lot of athletes need to learn what it's like to not slice through the water. We talked about in number 2, and this will be our 3 for today. We talked about number 2, knowing your flaws, and I talked about, with the harder with swimming, the harder you work, the slower you go. A lot of athletes just want to spin their arms to spin them. And just because, don't be fooled, folks. Just because your arm is in the water doesn't mean it's doing you any good. And that is just one of those things that I think athletes just assume that, well, if my arm is in the water, it must be doing something good. But that's not the case. The faster you move your arms through, right? If you think about, taking take a spatula, for example. You turn it on its side, you got the real thin, it's not sharp, but it can be, and think about slicing that through butter. Real easy, no problem, right? That's how a lot of people swim. Quick, precise, nothing done. But not precise. I mean, just like you get no pressure, you get no resistance, you've got no leverage. I'm just knifing through to come back out and do a lot of work. So you think about how fast you spin your arms to go nowhere. And that's generally what a lot of people feel. I feel like I'm just working really hard to go nowhere. It's because you are, right? You're spinning so quickly. You're not doing, again, don't be fooled. There is a high likelihood you are doing very, very little with your arm in the water. Just because it's in the water doesn't mean it's doing anything. Now take the spatula and turn it how it's supposed to be turned, and then push down on the butter. You're going to smash it. Full front, you got the full blade all the way, full surface area, all that pressure. That's how you should be swimming. You're getting everything, and it's going to take you a minute to push through. That's how you want to swim. So a lot of people just hurry so quickly through their stroke because they incorporate, and again, and I get it, because in cycling and running, go faster means to be faster, or be faster means to go faster. I got to spin my legs faster. I just got to pick up my cadence. You don't go, all right, man, Mike, why don't you go out and run some 5K intervals? You're like, all right. And then you say, all right, I wonder how, low I can get my cadence on this. No, you're like, how quickly can I move my legs, right? Same thing with cycling, right? You can generate more power, if you gear down into big gear, but not for long. If you really want to generate the highest power possible, you're going to be up in the 95, 100 range for sprinting. Swimming is the opposite. You're getting nothing. You're doing a lot of work, and I to spend some time doing this on the dry erase board, kind of showing the flow of water and what you're grabbing and when most athletes grab it, right? And you think about the hands of a clock. Most athletes, not most, a lot of athletes, your arm motion, right, in the water is exactly how the hand of a clock works from 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock. You push a little bit water down, you get a little bit of push back, right, from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock, and then from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock, you push water up. So you push water down, you push a little bit back, and you push water up. What I use is I just kind of built I did that clock. And then I basically did a plus right? Where the push down is, because if you're pushing water down, it's not terrible because you're actually pushing yourself up in the water, which is great. So it's not bad, but you're also not moving yourself forward. You're simply pushing yourself up. So I made that a plus. Then I made that little bitty gap from, from 5 to 7, a plus, right? Plus is in you're moving positive water backwards. And then the back end, from 7 to 9, I did a minus. Because if you're pushing water up and not down, you're actually submerging yourself, causing more resistance. So if you take the 3 parts, part 1, the plus, and part 3, the minus, cancel each other out. So all you're left with is that little 5 to 7 of pushing some water backwards. And that's even if you have a decent early vertical forearm. So think about how your hand and how your arm moves in the shape of a clock. Think about all of the motion, all of the effort it takes to do that. And the return on investment is 2 to 3/12, so a fourth. That's why it feels so hard to swim, right? But in reality, obviously, because I don't care really about what your arm and your hand looks like from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, as long as it allows you into the water at 3. Think about being able to get vertical, right, at the 4, and then you're keeping that 4 all the way across to the 9. Now you've doubled, almost tripled what you're pushing water back. Because again, swimming is all about pushing water backwards. The least amount of you in the water, right? You want the least amount of you in. When you're riding high in the water, versus how much you can push water below you. So when you spin out and you really want to move your arms fast, and you wonder why you're going slower, and you're wondering why the latter one that I gave the example of an early vertical form at 3, coming straight across and pushing water straight back, like the hand no longer goes in a circle, it just floats, right? Vertical on that axis all the way to the 9 and then comes up. That's all the water you're pushing back. Again, you have to focus on that. You have to find ways to fix that, to get a feel for that. So don't be fooled, right? And or feeling that, my hands on it for a long time doing it doesn't mean it's doing the right work. And the last example I'll give on that before we cut out today is we've all ridden next to that cyclist that just got their bike. And they're trying to hang with you. They're on a group ride. Or you see them out, in the, it's, a lot of times it's kids. They got a new bike with gears, and they're doing like 130 cadence. They're bouncing on the seat. They're going nowhere. And you're like, dude, just gear down a little bit, get smooth, be able to get the full pedal stroke. You're going to go faster and easier. It's the exact same thing with swimming. Got to find the right stroke, got to find the right cadence, got to find the right effort to go faster, make it easier, and to go farther. So again, like that's the spinning out thing is obviously, especially when athletes here. I mean, I saw it in the pool. Even when I was controlling people's stroke rate, when I was controlling the pace, as soon as we got down to the hard intervals, the first time they blew off the wall, you know what they did? Blasted off with their legs. No, stop. It's like we have this like engage. All right, go hard, engage, flailing speed with legs, which are probably not super efficient, and arms, and it equated to higher RPE, matched or lower and slower sometimes. So again, don't spin out, learn how to become efficient. And that is part 1 of part 12 of How to Not Suck at Swimming for today.
Yeah. We can wrap that up. I've always liked the bike analogy with that, with the pedal stroke and everything, and finding the right gear, gearing up, gearing down, and just finding that perfect pressure. And I think there's something to be said about doing that in the water. I don't think it's as easy to find it, but the pressure is huge.
Yeah, it's not easy, but we'll cover that on Thursday.
All right, man.
As always, we love you. We appreciate you tuning in today and for always tuning in. Appreciate your time. Go to our website, c26triathlon.com, and it's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. Looking for coaching for the rest of the year or for 2024, make sure you check out the coaching tab and find the coach that's right for you. If you need anything from Mike, he's available. CrushingIron@gmail.com. If you need anything from me, C26coach at gmail.com.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
Yep. And last thing, candy corns are for losers.
Oh, candy corn. Yeah. Ooh, man. Sometimes you can get a handful going, though.
I don't know what that sounds like or feels like or tastes like. Just spread the gospel. Just spreading the gospel.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
See you Thursday.